Hey everyone, my name is Joy Ma and I'm one of the authors of the book, The Deoliwallahs. I wrote this book with Dilip, a journalist who some of you know very well. I'm here today to talk about what it means to be a Chinese Indian in the United States in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. If you're like me, you've been reading the internet for news, you've been on social media and you're watching TV. There are a lot of parallels, but the most significant one, I think, is the one that is really about the way people look. A lot of the people who were interned in India, 3,000 of them, were Chinese people who had been living in India for generations. We're talking about 2 or 3 generations. We're talking about some people who came and migrated for work and continued to live in India for many years. But when the internment happened, it didn't matter who they were, where they came from. As long as they looked Chinese, they were rounded up and taken to Deoli, Rajasthan. So that's happening today also in the United States. A lot of the people who are being discriminated against is for the way they look. It doesn't matter whether you are Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, as long as you look somewhat Chinese, they're being insulted, they're being, threatened, they're being laughed at, and that's truly unfair. This is not a Chinese virus, as somebody says. It's really a virus that knows no race, knows no identities. It just sweeps through, and it's really unfortunate. I think what we need to remember, or at least our leaders need to remember, is how important what they say is. The weight of their words really carries through, and it really affects the people who are listening to them. So we encourage our leaders to be thoughtful, to be kind, and lead. And this is something that we can also take from them. We as a people, no matter who you are, whether you're in the United States, you're in India, it really matters that we can do a few things. And these are the things I think that would help us. We need to stay informed. We need to educate those around us, and we need to be kind. The amount of kindness, even a small act of it, goes a long way. When you read the book, The Deoliwallahs, you'll find how the different stories, no matter how sad and despairing they were, as long as there was one kind action, it really stayed with them for a long time. I wish you well, I wish you are safe, and I wish we will see you soon sometime.
Hi, I'm Dilip, and I'm the guy who wrote with Joy Ma this book, The Deoliwallahs. Today I wanted to suggest 5 more books to read in this time of a pandemic that have some bearing on pandemics and on the tensions that led to the incarcerations that Joy and I write about in our book. So the first I want to talk about is this book. Since, in fact, pandemics are fundamentally mathematical phenomenon, that's something for you to check into. I want to recommend this book. It's called Statistics by David Hand. And it just gives you an idea into statistics and probability and growth and estimation, all kinds of words that we are hearing a lot about as the corona is swirling around us. So that's the first. Then I want to tell you about Innumeracy by John Allen Paulos. This classic absolutely never gets old. It's about 35 years old, I think. Let me just read out to you from the blurb at the back. It says, John Allen Paulos argues that our inability to deal rationally with very large numbers or with the probabilities associated with them results in misinformed government policies, confused personal decisions, and an increased susceptibility to pseudosciences of all kinds. That's what you should read Innumeracy for about. It just tells you about mathematical illiteracy and its consequences. The third book is, of course, Albert Camus' The Plague, which is really about the original classic about epidemics. You know, everybody has heard about this book, and I just want to tell you about, there are a lot of echoes with what's happening today. Especially, there's a priest in here who claims at one point that the plague is God's punishment on his flock. And Dr. Ryu, the protagonist, at one point asks him, you know, how does that explain the death of a child? I urge you to read it for those reasons. Then we have David Gutterson's Snow Falling on Cedars, which is a haunting novel set against the Japanese-American incarceration in 1942, incarceration of Japanese Americans. And again, let me read from the blurb, where it says, this community where this book is set, San Pedro, is haunted by the memory of what happened to its Japanese residents during World War II, when an entire community was sent into exile while its neighbors watched. That's exactly what Joy and I wrote about in Deoliwallahs. And finally, I want to talk about Bernard McLavity's book, Cal, which remains again 35 years after it was first published, or I first read it at any rate, remains one of my favorite books of all time. It's a slim book, and it's a haunting book again, a beautiful love story, beautifully written, set against the troubles in Northern Ireland. I won't say more. I urge you to read these. In fact, both these books, Cal and Snow Falling on Cedars, were both made into very lovely films. So maybe you can watch those films too while you're on lockdown. But please read also, in addition to watching films, read these books that I told you about and the Deoliwallahs by Joy and me. Thanks a lot. Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye.